Will OU softball collect 2 top 25 wins and go 4-0 on the weekend? What's the number one thing that we need to see from the Sooners this weekend? Let's preview the upcoming games as another weekend of Sooner softball is upon us. And no, it's not 6 games in 4 days, but it's back-to-back doubleheaders on Saturday and Sunday in Waco, Texas for the Getterman Classic. OU will play 2 games against Hofstra, 2 games against the host team, Baylor. I've got previews, predictions, storylines, and more, and I invite you to join me on all of those. Who's going to be this week's MVP, and how many of the 4 games will OU win this weekend? Drop those thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You guys are saying incredible things such as this. Thank you very much for all the kind words. Let's keep it going. Let's get to it. All right, first, let's get to the weekend schedule for the Getterman Classic in Waco. OU is going to play Hofstra on Saturday at noon, so no Friday night games. Saturday at noon, and then they'll turn right around and play Baylor at 2:30. So a doubleheader on Saturday, and then again on Sunday. Sooners will play Hofstra early, 10 a.m. game early Sunday morning. And then OU will play the final game of the weekend against Baylor at 3 o'clock. So a bit of a later start time than normal on Sunday afternoon. A quick preview on both teams OU will play this weekend. I think this probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Baylor is the better team of the 2 opponents that the Sooners will face this weekend. But let's start with Hofstra since that's who you play first. This is actually going to be Hofstra's opening weekend. They did not play last week, like seemingly the rest of the college softball world. So they're going to head to Waco 0-0 on the season, and OU will actually be Hofstra's second game of the season because Baylor and Hofstra will play on Friday night. Hofstra will play 5 games this weekend, 3 against Baylor, 2 against Oklahoma. They were picked to finish 5th in the CAA preseason poll this year, which, oddly enough, that conference is the one that Bella Smith won Pitcher of the Year in last season. Hofstra had 1 player on the CAA preseason first-team list. Their senior catcher, Olivia Molinowski, was named back in January, and if there's a name that you need to look out for, that's the name that you probably need to watch the most with this Hofstra team this weekend. Next up is Baylor, a team ranked in multiple top 25 polls, 24th by Softball America, number 25 by D1 Softball. So the Sooners are going to have 2 true road games this week against a top 25 opponent. Baylor 3-2 on the year after playing in the Aggie Classic in College Station last weekend. Baylor run-ruled Abilene Christian and then beat Purdue in its first 2 games of the year, but then lost its next 2 against A&M and then Utah State. Baylor closed out the weekend with a win over Villanova. So no shame in Baylor losing to a top 8 team on its home field, but then a puzzling loss to Utah State on Saturday afternoon. Now, I do think it's fair to point out this is a very big storyline this weekend. Baylor was without their best player for the majority of the weekend, Shaylin Govan, and she only had 2 at-bats against A&M, and that was as the designated player, not first base, her regular position. So not sure on her availability this weekend, but if she's out, that's going to be a very big deal. Not only is she Baylor's best player, it's even deeper than that. She's one of the best players in the Big 12, maybe the best position player in the Big 12, and she was actually voted as the best first baseman in softball by Softball America before the season. She came in at number 11 in the preseason top 100 players list, which was higher than every single OU player on that list, by the way. She's good and not someone Baylor can just replace. 50 career home runs, which was the most of any current player in the country coming into the season, and she was a unanimous All-American last year. So her availability is one of the bigger storylines in the entirety of the Getterman Classic. Now, Baylor does still have some offensive weapons outside of Govan, and I would say that that's probably considered the strength of Baylor's team right now. Another offensive name to know is a familiar one, Taria Coleman, who began her career at Oklahoma and was in Norman for 1 year in 2022. She was all Big 12 second team a year ago. Baylor's pitching struggled in the first weekend. Blew a 7-1 lead against A&M going into the 5th inning. Looks like Baylor was going to collect a huge top 8 road win, up 7-1. They blew that lead. They end up losing 10-7. 3.39 ERA with 14 walks and 14 strikeouts the first weekend of the year. Those aren't great numbers. Dariana Orm was voted as the number 96 overall player before the year by Softball America, and I would guess that OU is going to see her at some point, but not a ton of depth in the circle for Baylor, so there is a very good get-right opportunity for the OU offense this weekend. So a good get-right spot is actually a great segue for the biggest storylines for the Sooners and what I'm looking for from this team this weekend. And first, I think that we can all agree it's the offense, but more specifically, hitting with runners on base. They cannot strand the amount of base runners they did last week against Long Beach State or some of the other games last weekend as well. More than anything this weekend, I think they need to be better at getting runners in, not stranding runners. And as we move forward, not only for this weekend in Waco, but as we move forward throughout the season. Now, in no way am I pushing the panic button on the OU offense. Far from it, actually. And I do think that we're going to see a better all-around performance from the OU offense. But it's the thing I'm looking for the most. It doesn't have to be a 3-run bomb. Those are nice, sure. But sometimes it can just be a routine fly ball that scores a runner. Regardless, it's the thing from last weekend that needs to improve the most. I think it will. But I want to see multiple hitters with RBIs this weekend, and that left-on-base number be dramatically smaller than it was in California. Second, and maybe this is a bit of a surprise, I'm actually going with base running. You know, I've said it before, Patty said it before, they're going to be aggressive, and I think that's a very good thing for this year's team, but it also means, while being aggressive, that at times you're going to run into some outs. There were a few instances where OU ran into some outs last weekend on the base paths. I think of being thrown out at the plate against Long Beach State and a couple of times where runners got doubled off. I don't think the base running was terrible last weekend, but I do think it can be better than what it was. Now, I don't want to see this team be less aggressive. I want to see this team continue to be aggressive with stolen bases, but make less costly mistakes on the base paths. Let's see the speed. Let's see the athleticism. Let's see all of that, and let's see that cause mistakes this weekend for both Hofstra and Baylor. Third is the pitching, and I don't bring this up in a negative way because it was very good throughout the first 6 games. Great weekend and great moments for every arm the Sooners have. But this is going to be a very nice test this weekend for the OU pitchers. In fact, I think Baylor's offense is the best OU will have seen to this point, and you got to face them twice on their home field. So, does Bella Smith continue her dominance? Does Sam Landry look as sharp as she did on Saturday? Can Kirsten Deal build off one of her best starts in an OU uniform? Can Audrey Lowry continue to be good as both a starter and a reliever? Will Peyton Monticelli continue to be great in relief? There's so many interesting storylines after the first week that I'm going to be following. But as a whole, does the pitching staff attack the strike zone as well as they did last week? Because they struck out 50 hitters and only walked 5 in 6 games. That is a great, great number. I love that number. I want to see this OU pitching staff continue to get on top of counts and limit walks. Excited to see this group in a very nice test once again this weekend. So there's the breakdown and storylines. How about some predictions? Let's start with Game 1 against Hofstra. I really want to see OU come out fast, and then just not relax for the 3rd, 4th, 5th inning. No, come out fast, continue to put up a lot of runs. And I'm sure Patty Gasso wants the same as well. This game is a tone setter for the entirety of the weekend. OU is the better team. There is no arguing that. And I think it should show up in the first game of the weekend. Give me OU 9-0 over Hofstra to kick off the Getterman Classic. 9-0 run rule in 5 innings. Let it be the tone setter for the entire weekend. OU starts off the weekend 1-0. Game 2 on Saturday is the first matchup against Baylor. Highly anticipated matchup. I'm very interested to see who gets the start in the circle this game. I think it could be Landry. I think it could be Bella Smith. I think it could be Kirsten Deal. I even think it could be Audrey Lowry. But here's my general feel for the weekend. I think OU is going to have a better showing on offense than last week. I just feel like after regrouping and a week in practice, like this team is going to come back and correct some of the issues from last weekend. And it's a great bounce back spot for an OU offense against a Baylor pitching staff that struggled last week. I'm showing some confidence here. Showing a lot of confidence here. Give me OU 8-3 over Baylor in game 1, a comfortable win for the Sooners to start 2-0. And then we go to Sunday, that 10 a.m. first pitch, but my thoughts about OU playing Hofstra don't change from game to game. And I hope this team makes me look smart. I hope this team makes me look very smart. Early game, so they got to bring their own energy after a doubleheader the day before, but I think they'll do that. I think they'll do that enough. Give me a nice 9-1 win to start off the day on Sunday. Sooners move to 9-0 on the season, 3-0 on the weekend. Then we get to the finale on Sunday. Not as long of a weekend as the California trip, but it will be the 4th game in 2 days. I think that this is going to be another very close Sunday game, just like last weekend. Again, interested to see who gets the start for OU in this game, and it could very well be a game where you see multiple pitchers kind of get work throughout the afternoon. I'm going to take OU in this one. I've got the 4-0 weekend, but I think that they're going to have to earn it game 2 on Sunday. OU wins a very close 5-4 game. Heck, maybe even this one goes to extra innings. We saw that a couple of times last week, but I think OU wins 5-4, a very close game. Baylor is a team that can beat you if you're not better than you were last week. The thing is, I think OU will be better than what they were last week. I do think we see progress with this team, which is what we need to be watching for more than anything right now. I think OU will look better. I think they'll be better. I think they'll get pushed. Yes, not a bad thing, but they're going to finish 4-0 on the weekend to move to 10-0 on the season. That takes us to the MVP of the week. Went with Cassidy Pickering last week, and she was good. But Ella Parker was SEC Player of the Week, and Bella Smith was flat out amazing with a 0 ERA. So I could go with Ella Parker, and maybe that's what I should just do every single week. Go with who I think is the best hitter in all of college softball. She's so good that she's always going to have a great chance. But I'm going to go with a bit of a sneaky pick here, and this one I think is going to surprise you. I'm going with Isabella Emmerling. That's right. Emmerling provides the power this week for the Sooners. She had the incredible 9th-inning grand slam against San Diego State last week, and I think that she's going to do some very special things this week. You guys better give me a lot of props if this one hits, okay? Because I don't think a lot of you will have the same pick as me this week, but that's my pick. I'm sticking to it. Isabella Emmerling, MVP of the week. All right, let's get to an injury update. Some of you were concerned after Kirsten Deal got pulled. Clearly, she's fine. She came back in and pitched a gym on Sunday. But I know a lot of you want an update on Hannah Core. And though there hasn't been an official word from Patty on that situation, what I've heard, it sounds like she's overall going to be okay. And it was a pretty minor injury. That's what it looked like at the time to me, just kind of a minor ankle injury. Now, I know that she didn't return. She didn't play again last weekend after that injury, but it doesn't sound like it's anything serious or anything where she's going to be out a while. In fact, as of Tuesday this week, it sounded like there's a chance that she was going to suit up this weekend and maybe even play. Now, that's not 100%, far from it, but it does sound like there is a chance that we could get Hannah Core back this weekend, which is good news. But regardless if we see her or not this weekend, it sounds like she is going to be back soon, and that's important for a team that's still trying to figure out its best options in the outfield. So Hannah Core could very well be back this week, but even if she's not, this is not going to be an injury, seemingly, that's going to keep her sidelined for very long. Lastly, I want to look at some national games of interest. I know several of you watch softball games outside of just OU, and last weekend was really fun across the country, and guess what? It's going to be the case again this weekend, especially the tournament in Clearwater, Florida, which is one of the main tournaments now of the regular season. Oklahoma State will be in it. Not a great start for the Cowgirls to open up the season. They lost a couple of games, and they got a couple of more tests coming up. UCLA, Texas A&M, Alabama. Cowgirls got to have one of the toughest schedules in the first 2 weeks of all of college softball. And like I said, more big tests coming up this weekend. I definitely think Oklahoma State is a Big 12 contender, but these games are interesting to me because it's a nice early indication of how they stack up against some of the best teams outside of their own conference. As for like a Clearwater Invitational prediction, Oklahoma State, I think that they beat Alabama, but I don't see them beating UCLA and Texas A&M. So maybe a nice weekend for Oklahoma State, but a couple of more losses I'm predicting are heading their way. The game I'm probably most interested in is Texas hosting Texas Tech in Austin on Friday night. And hopefully, Nigeri Kennedy pitches this game. Let's not make the same mistake twice, because Kennedy versus Texas would be absolutely incredible. That Texas lineup is legit, and Kennedy has seen it before, saw it in the Women's College World Series last year. Going to be a fascinating matchup between two top 8 teams, and I'm sure Austin's going to be crazy for that. Look out for that annoying horn, Tech fans. Give me Texas in this game in a very close, very fun Friday night battle. The Clearwater Invitational gets started on Thursday. There's just so many good teams and so many good games this weekend. You even get Florida State and Missouri, a great matchup right out of the gate on Thursday morning. Really nice test for both teams. Florida State lost its first game of the season against Oklahoma State, but they bounced back very nicely. Let's see if they can carry that momentum into this week. Still like that Florida State team. It's a team that we see in Oklahoma City a lot, and I kind of look for them to have a big weekend in Clearwater this weekend. Some other games I'm going to be watching. Duke will play Florida in Gainesville, UCLA and Alabama in Clearwater, LSU and Virginia Tech in Baton Rouge is going to be a lot of fun. Just an insane weekend. I can't wait. OU and Baylor a couple of times certainly headline the group this weekend. But another fun weekend of college softball approaching, and let's hope the Sooners can get to 10-0 once we get to Sunday night. As always, appreciate you guys for watching. We'll talk soon.